Hello there, thanks for joining us for this latest edition of Talking Europe. I'm Catherine Nicholson, today at the European Parliament in Strasbourg. Now, Europe is, if nothing else, a patchwork of cultures and people. Indeed, 2018 has been designated the year of European cultural heritage. However, there is concern, here at the Parliament at least, that the EU's ethnic minorities and minority languages have been somewhat forgotten, getting too little protection in an age of cultural homogenisation. Well, MEPs have just voted to support a resolution that's calling for more attention to be thrown on these very issues. So, what does that mean? Which minorities are we even talking about? I'm joined today by MEP Soraya Post from Sweden's Feminist Initiative Party, yourself of Romani origin via your mother, and the first MEP elected on a feminist ticket, I think.
Yes.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
And from Ireland, an outspoken defender of the Irish language, among other issues, MEP Leah Ní Riada of Sinn Féin. Thank you for being with us. Well, we're going to start off with a look at a cultural aspect to this. This issue has gotten more attention recently, in part thanks to a film that highlighted the treatment of one minority, the Sami people in Scandinavia. This film, called Sami Blood, won the EU's Film Award, the Lux Prize, in 2017. Take a look at this little snippet.
Jag vill studera vidare i Uppsala.
Ja, men ni kan inte samma sak som de svenska barnen.
Ni måste vara här uppe, för annars så dör ni ut. Men om jag inte vill vara här?
Ta tillbaka det du sa!
Har jag sagt?
Ta tillbaka det du sa! Du är lika mycket lätt som jag!
Titi Sami onkin ju mongolka. Tämän kautta Sami tätä vaan jirme. Ikisit ut miinasne.
Är det inte du som är från Lappland som Niklas träffade? Men då kan ju du jojka, jodla, jojka.
So there we go, a little look at that film Sami Blood that brought some of these issues to the fore once again. Set in the 1930s in Sweden, I ought to say. Soraya Post, if I come to you first then, the obvious link. That film talking about a historic situation, but the resolution that's had support here in the European Parliament this week says there are still problems that exist today. A lot of people might find that hard to believe or understand. Why does this issue still need highlighting in Europe in 2018?
The 6th of February was the 100-year celebration of the first Sami Congress in Sweden. And I mean, still today, the Swedish state continues to refuse Sami people international human rights recognition by not ratifying the ILO Indigenous and Tribal Peoples Convention, number 169. So, yes, they are still facing a lot of problems in Sweden as well.
What kind of problems?
First of all, they need to have this recognition, which is refused by the Swedish state. And also, there is a need to involve the Sami people when decisions are taken about which interfere in their territory, of course. So, and from my party side, we support the Sami people 100%. Yeah.
And it's not just about the Sami people, of course. There are several other ethnic minorities in Europe that I know we're talking about. Roma, Irish travellers, for example. Leah Ní Riada, what for you are the main issues being brought out in this resolution?
Well, I think for a start, it's important to recognise that this resolution gives voice to those who have been marginalised for many, many decades, and it's a step in the right direction. That is to say, however, that it is not necessarily going to be implemented as law. It's a letter of intent more than anything to pressurise member states to recognise ethnicity and to recognise, for instance, traveller rights, as you pointed out there, language rights, LGBTI rights, and a whole lot of other marginalised communities that need a voice.
All right, so we're talking about sort of a line in the sand, the European Parliament laying out its position. Well, members of our team at France 24's Europe team have been to Norway, in fact, to find out a bit more about the situation for Sami there. Sami present in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and some in Russia as well. Now, this is an ethnic minority that does have official recognition of various kinds in those countries, around 100,000 Sami in total across that region. They live mainly as reindeer herders, but their traditional way of life is increasingly under threat from various sides, clashing with modern life, with business interests and even climate change. Check out this report by Isabelle Romero and Anaïs Guérard.
In the Arctic Circle near Tromsø, the reindeer have left the shoreline for their winter pastures in the mountains. But thanks to climate change, they're having trouble grazing.
We had a very stable climate for about 20, 30 years ago, with minus 20 to 40 all the winter. Now it's like 0 degrees and it's raining in the middle of the winter, and then the reindeers are struggling to find food.
When the temperature rises, the snow melts and then freezes over again. The resulting ice becomes so hard that the reindeer struggle to break through to reach the plants that they need to survive. For the indigenous Sami people themselves, there's a far more pressing crisis.
We are struggling with this, all the building companies. They want to build houses, cabins, roads, windmills, power lines. It makes our life harder. Every reindeer herder family have to have one lawyer now. Now we have to wake up, because before we lose all the land.
Territorial conflicts are ever more common. In Norway, the Sami engage with their parliament, voicing their concerns at events like this one, the Arctic Frontiers Conference. But the government's interests are very powerful.
They have this northern policy. It's very important to develop the resources we have, and they have a mining strategy. That this is really a test case now. If the Norwegian government is able to develop these industries like the mines. So if this is not possible now, then the whole strategy of the Norwegian government of mining will just collapse.
The Sami herders have been left to fend for themselves. They're trying to develop other areas such as tourism to help people understand more about their culture. They also have the support of international organisations who defend their rights. The EU has reaffirmed its desire to guarantee sustainable development in the region, including all native communities. But it remains to be answered whether this will secure the future of the Sami.
So there we go, a look at one ethnic minority that says that their rights are not being given enough consideration. Leonie Reardon, if I come back to you, I think we saw there that this is where good intentions come up against harsh realities. You know, climate change is something that no government can control. Even if we talk about giving people official recognition, that doesn't necessarily translate into sort of the practical help day to day. You know, what kind of thing would you like to see come out of this sort of statement of intent?
Well, certainly, and you know, not to be going against what you're saying, but I would say governments do have a responsibility in terms of climate change, and it is something that they can contribute to making the proper changes and putting policies in place that we reach our climate targets. But however, in terms of the letter of intent, as it were, they need to put proper investment in. And investment is key, but it's also a cultural shift, I think. When we look at the traveller community in Ireland, for instance, they need to be recognised and respected for their indigenous culture, but they also need their needs to be addressed in a meaningful way. And that means that they need to be at the table when it comes to making those policies and implementation of investment. Because I'm not in a position to tell a traveller, for instance, this is where you need to live, or this is better for you. They need to inform me as a policymaker, and they need to do the same to each respective government. The resolution needs to be a broader dialogue. It can't be about us talking to ourselves. We need to get our ordinary citizens talking and debating and questioning and challenging themselves on preconceived ideas of who the others are.
Well, Soraya Post, to come back to you on that point, if we talk about cultural change and the majority of people recognising ethnic minorities, I think it's true to say that there would be many people who would say, look, this isn't that many people. Europe is 500 million citizens. There are 100,000 Sami. Isn't it just, you know, climate change is this massive thing that affects all of us, for example. You know, how much time and consideration should be given to what are considered small minority issues?
I mean, Europe is also a diverse society, and we would like to keep it that way, which means that we have to take care and secure the lives and the culture existing, of course, by including the minorities. Yes, the Sami is about 100,000. If we go to the Roma, we are about 12 or 15 million. So, which means that we are maybe 2 Nordic states together in population. Yeah. And so, I mean, the recognition as a national minority, a recognition the language as a national minority language is crucial.
And recognition meaning protection as well?
Recognition means protection, and it also means that you are going to support them to keep it alive and to develop the culture and the language, because all language will develop. So this is, of course, very important. But it is also, as for example, when it comes to the Roma, I just, yes, in October, the Parliament adopted a report on how to fight anti-Gypsies, the discrimination towards Roma and traveller in Europe, in the European Union. So, which means that we as policymakers has to work towards the mainstream society, because it's not that we are discriminating ourselves. It should not be on the minorities' shoulders to tackle these
This
problems.
perhaps brings up something that I think is an interesting paradox within this situation. I know that last year the Irish traveller community got official recognition in the Republic of Ireland. However, as part of that debate, some of the Irish politicians involved said, for example, they were voting against because they feel it creates distinctions which can create divisions. For example, people saying, they're as Irish as I am, I don't want to create divisions.
That's a cop-out, and it's not really giving them their real recognition in terms of a unique cultural status. And look, it's the same as when we have in the Irish language. It's like, oh, well, we have our Irish language as our first language. Why should we really, invest more in this, without realising that you need to keep it, and encourage our younger generation to speak it by investing in it, not reducing public services. But I think that is a complete cop-out. And we've also had Irish politicians who have said, we like the traveller community, but not in my backyard. And that's that cultural shift that I'm talking about. And if that's the attitude that's coming from some of those that are currently in government, it's a damning indication, I suppose, of where the political will is towards giving full recognition as a unique cultural status. They need to do it not only just for the traveller community and the Roma community, they need to do it for all those who are marginalised, and particularly in my own case when it comes to the Irish languages, which I'm passionate about all languages, because language is your identity. And when you spoke about climate change earlier on, you lose a whole lot of biodiversity when you lose a language as well. It's not just the written word that's gone. So all of that holistic approach needs to be given, but it comes from political will. Implementing this, its political will is mainly the key thing.
Well, political will does seem to have kept the Irish language teaching going in Ireland. It's an official language, of course. Let's talk about that, as you are such a prominent speaker on behalf of the language. I did see a survey conducted in 2016 among 13-year-olds that they said that out of English, maths and Irish was their least favourite, and they found it the most difficult. Again, it seems to be this issue of sort of the majority feeling, oh, we don't really need that. Why then should there be this case for keeping these things sort of facilitated?
The problem with 13-year-olds, and I have one myself, is they don't probably like any of those subjects for a start. But secondly, I think the way it's being taught is not conducive to enjoyment. It's very much focused on being grammatically correct. It is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, Indo-European languages. So it is an extremely complex grammatical language to learn, and to try and make that exciting for a 13-year-old or younger is very, very difficult. Even though they're sponges, it needs to be conversational Irish. It needs to be a living language and not a textbook language. The same, as I'd imagine, with any other language like Roma or any of the other languages that are not perhaps widely spoken as much.
All right, we've got very little time left, so just come back to Soraya Post for one last very quick question. After this resolution got the support from the European Parliament, do you feel positive that there will be positive change for minorities?
Yes, I am very positive, because as long as we can keep it on the political agenda at this level, it is positive.
There we go, positive note to end on.
Yeah.
It's almost the end of our programme. Just time to check up on some fake news. As you know, we like to check on the fake news here on Talking Europe. Today we're looking at an item of French cultural heritage, one of its culinary exports. Take a listen to this.
Are pre-lentils threatened by the EU? This is what head of France's main opposition party, Les Républicains, stated last October on French radio. According to Laurent Wauquiez, lentils from Canada would be distributed despite them not undergoing domestic safety checks, and consumers would not be informed about this. But he is mistaken twice in this statement. First of all, European sanitary regulations apply to all agricultural goods sold in Europe, including lentils, no matter where they come from. As long as a product enters the EU, these checks are mandatory. Whether a product is from an EU member state or not makes no difference. Some producers can choose to conform to special rules, such as being grown out of certified seeds or without fertilizers. This is how they can earn the greatly valued European label of protected geographical indication or the French registered designation of origin. This is also why the statement that consumers would not be informed is false, since these labels are clearly visible on packaging. The trade deal with Canada does not change anything except making it possible that such European labels would be accessible on the other side of the Atlantic. Could the fake news law Emmanuel Macron seeks to implement have applied in such a case? No, since Laurent Wauquier's statement was expressed out of an electoral campaign. Let's not spread fake news on EU food safety regulations for a plate of lentils, of the pluie variety or otherwise.
All right, unfortunately, that is the end of our programme. Just time to thank my guests once again. Soraya Post, thank you very much for your time. Also, Leah Nierieder, thank you both for joining this debate. Thank you as well for watching, and do stay tuned to France 24. Plenty more European news coming up for you.